Welcome back, strangers. Sometimes, when we're making a new video, I get super creeped out thinking about what the chances are that I'll experience something like the topic we're covering. Many of us are so fortunate that we'll never be able to fully understand some of the horrendous things others have gone through, but what are the chances it'll actually happen to you? What if someone is already stalking you, watching and learning your daily routine, preparing to sneak into your house when you aren't home, and wait for you, or maybe come back later through a window they unlocked so they can surprise you while you're sleeping at night? Today, we're going to discuss the top 5 states in America where you're most likely to encounter a serial killer based on serial killings provided by the FBI. The last is my favorite state I've visited, and I would have never expected to be number 1 on this list. Over 20% of the documented serial killers in the world have come from a 200-mile radius around Seattle, Washington. Many large metropolitan areas have had at least one serial killer, but Seattle has had dozens. There have been a total of 277 serial killers in Washington, with an average number of serial killings of 7.44 per 1 million people in the charming northwestern state. Notable killers include Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who terrorized the state for over 20 years, mainly targeting women. Gary was convicted of 48 murders and is currently serving life in a Washington state prison, but he claims to have killed at least twice as many victims. Ted Bundy was a former University of Washington student who confessed to murdering 30 young women in Washington, Oregon, California, Utah, and Florida. Ted reportedly began killing in 1971 in Seattle, but he also claimed he killed 2 women in Atlantic City in 1969 before beginning his spree of murders, kidnappings, and rapes. Finally, Wesley Allen Dodd, who is known as one of the most evil killers in history, sexually assaulted as many as 175 children, along with killing a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and 4-year-old over the course of 15 years. His last words were, "I was once asked by somebody, I don't remember who, if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong." In 1993, he was the first legal hanging in the United States since 1965. If that didn't make you rethink living the dream in Washington, at least reconsider owning a cat. Since September of this year, there have been 13 cats murdered by a serial cat killer in Washington state. To many, the idea of living in California makes them think of living a laid-back, low-stress life in the sunshine and surf, or maybe chasing dreams of stardom in Hollywood. Yet, many of the country's most infamous serial killers have called the state home. Over 1,500 California residents have been murdered by serial killers since 1900. The killings peaked between the 1960s and 1980s and have finally slowed in recent years. Today, the average number of serial killings stands at roughly 7.81 deaths per 1 million California residents. During the 1980s, California was responsible for over 20% of all serial killer murders, and overall, California has the second highest number of serial killers in the country. Notable ones include the notorious Golden State Killer, who is believed to have murdered 12 people, committed 45 sexual assaults, and robbed 120 residences from 1976 to 1986 before quietly ending his decade of terror. He was fortunately arrested earlier this year, and we covered it with Pink Spooky on our weekly livestream podcast you should go check out. During the 1980s, the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez raped and tortured at least 25 victims, 13 of which he murdered when he was finished with them in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Richard was sentenced to death, but died of lymphoma in prison in 2013. The Zodiac Killer is one of the most prolific serial killers in American history that has not been caught. He terrorized Northern California in the late 1960s and killed at least 5 victims and injured 2 others. He claimed to have killed at least 37 people in his letters to the police and press. He typically targeted young couples that he would either shoot or stab to death. The Zodiac's correspondences stopped in 1974, but some are still hopeful that his identity will be discovered decades later, similarly to the Golden State Killer case. Recently in 2016, police arrested a suspect in the San Diego homeless killer case, and currently there's a possibility of an active serial killer in the northeast Los Angeles area. Florida may be one of the best places to retire in the country, but it's also a hotbed for serial predators with an average of 9.92 serial killings for every million residents. The Sunshine State also has the 3rd highest number of confirmed serial killers. Though the killings peaked in the 1980s, there may be more truth behind the TV show Dexter than many want to admit. Notable killers include Eileen Wuornos, who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990 by shooting them at point-blank range. She claimed her victims raped her while working as a prostitute. She was sentenced to death and was executed by lethal injection in 2002. The flat tire murderer killed 5 young women and teenage girls in South Florida between February 1975 to July of that year. It's believed the killer would deflate the victims' tires and gain their trust by offering to help them. The killer has never been identified or apprehended. Gerard John Schaefer Jr. was dubbed the Killer Cop because he was convicted of committing 2 murders while on patrol as a sheriff's deputy in Martin County. He is suspected to have committed many other murders, but no other victims have been confirmed. The Killer Cop boasted that he killed over 30 women and girls during his time as a sheriff's deputy. He was stabbed to death in prison by a fellow inmate in 1995. On November 28, 2017, police arrested Howell Emanuel Donaldson III, who is believed to be the Seminole Heights serial killer who shot and murdered 4 people in Tampa, Florida between October and November of 2017. The flashy neon lights in massive hotels in Las Vegas were originally built on blood money provided by the mafia. Before 1950, there were only 2 victims documented of serial killers in Nevada until the gambling boom in Vegas and Reno. Violent crime exploded in the desert state. Currently, Nevada has the second highest amount of violent crime in the country, with an average of 12.19 serial killings for every million residents. The high number of tourists visiting Las Vegas, prostitutes, and desperate individuals down on their luck create the ideal pool of victims for a serial killer, waiting for another body to leave behind in the Nevada desert. Notable killers include Neil Falls, who was shot and killed by an escort in Charleston, West Virginia in 2015. Police have linked him to at least 8 murders and potentially 4 more. He's been linked to dismembered bodies found outside of Las Vegas and may have killed more when he worked in Nevada at the Hoover Dam. For years, authorities have been trying to find links between the numerous bodies alongside of Interstate 80 that runs through Nevada. Today, there's no definite proof that an I-80 killer exists, but bodies keep being found along the highway. There's also been a serial shooter who has been targeting homeless people in Las Vegas, with at least 4 confirmed victims this year. In October, 68-year-old Nathan Burke pled guilty to 2 murders from a killing spree that took place over 40 years ago that killed at least 5 women in Sin City. Alaska is often marketed to tourists as the final frontier on Earth, but it's one of the most violent places in the country, with an average of 15.65 serial killings for every million residents. The state's isolation and rugged wilderness make it easy to commit disturbing acts of violence and murder without getting caught. No one can save you if there's no one around to hear you scream. Alaska is gorgeous and a popular tourist destination, but it also has a long history of attracting wild men, degenerates, and criminals. Notable serial killers include Robert Hansen, the butcher Baker, who was a loving father, successful baker, businessman, and hunter. Robert's hobbies included picking up prostitutes and exotic dancers in Anchorage. He would take them to his private plane in the Alaskan wilderness, where he would leave them in the middle of nowhere to only come back and hunt them down for sport. He killed at least 17 women before 17-year-old Cindy Paulson managed to escape Robert before she was forced on his plane. She was able to tell her story to the police, who were able to connect the missing women in the area to Robert's activities. He was sentenced to over 400 years in prison, where he died in 2014. Klutuk was the name given to an Eskimo who murdered fur trappers near the Kuskokwim River between 1919 and 1938. He would kill anyone who encroached on his territory, whether they were white or indigenous people. Klutuk would either shoot or kill his victims with an axe. Those lucky enough to survive his attacks described him to be small but fierce, standing around 5'4" and weighing about 140 pounds. In 1938, when the killing stopped, a body of an unknown hermit was found in a cabin near the Kuskokwim River that matched the description of Klutuk, but no one knows for certain if it was actually him. In 2007, Joshua Wade was arrested and confessed to murdering at least 5 people between 2000 and 2007 in Alaska. In 2016, James Dale Ritchie shot and killed 5 people in Anchorage in less than a year, before being killed by a police officer he shot at. Alaska does sound like the Wild West and the last true frontier on Earth. Would you still consider taking a trip to Alaska? Thanks, strangers, for watching. Which state surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like, and don't forget to subscribe and smash that bell button so you never miss out on our future videos. And also, be sure to check out our side channel where we're posting multiple videos every day. And as always, stay strange.